Hello, this is Nathan Faust from Faith Wise Defenders. If you like this content, please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It really helps us out. Have you ever met someone who just couldn't accept authority? Enter Jane. Jane was a bright and determined woman who always had an intense desire to do things her own way. She was brilliant, ambitious, and full of passion. But there was one thing she struggled with: accepting limits. Whether it was in her personal life, her career, or even her relationships, she bristled at the idea that anyone could tell her what to do. "Why should I have to follow anyone's rules?" she would often say. "I'm smart enough to make my own decisions." But one day, Jane faced a crisis. Everything she had built, a thriving career, a well organized life, began to unravel. She made a series of decisions that, in her determination to go her own way, left her struggling with a series of failures and regrets. It was a wake-up call. For the first time, she had to confront the reality that living without recognizing authority, without acknowledging any higher wisdom, had led her to a place of profound uncertainty. Now, it wasn't that Jane was a bad person. Quite the opposite. She was kind, considerate, compassionate, and full of potential. But in her resistance to acknowledging any authority beyond her own, she missed the deeper truth that would have brought her peace. That there is a wisdom beyond her own that governs the world, and that surrendering to it isn't a loss of freedom, but the path to true peace. When I think about Jane's story, it reminds me of the words in Psalm 2. This psalm speaks to the human condition, the resistance to divine authority, and the consequences of ignoring the rightful rule of God. But it also reveals a profound truth. God's sovereignty is not something to be feared or resisted. It is the foundation of all stability, the foundation of all wisdom, the foundation of all peace. Psalm 2 reads, "Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth rise up and the rulers band together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, 'Let us break their chains and throw off their shackles.' The one enthroned in heaven laughs. The Lord scoffs at them. He rebukes them in his anger and terrifies them in his wrath, saying, 'I have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. I will proclaim the Lord's decree,' he said to me. 'You are my son. Today I have begotten your father. Ask me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, the ends of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron. You will dash them to pieces like pottery. Therefore, you kings, be is unshakable. God's sovereignty is not tyrannical. Rather, it is an expression of his perfect wisdom and love. As the psalm unfolds, God declares that he has already established his king on Zion. This is a direct reference to Christ, who, as the anointed ruler, has been given all authority in heaven and on earth. The reign of God is not a distant ideal, it is a present reality, embodied in the person of Jesus. The nations may rage, but Christ is king, and he will inherit the earth. The psalm is a reminder that no matter how much humanity resists, God's sovereignty cannot be overthrown. This theme of sovereignty, of God's rightful rule over all creation, raises an important question for us today. How do we respond to God's sovereignty in our own lives? Do we, like Jane, try to resist God's authority, believing we can chart our own course without consequences? Or do we surrender to his rule, acknowledging that true freedom is found in submitting to his wise and loving way? Psalm 2 calls us to posture our humility and wisdom. It challenges us to recognize that the sovereignty of God is not a threat to our freedom, but the very foundation of it. The psalmist urges the rulers of the earth, and by extension, all of us, to serve the Lord with fear and to celebrate his rule with trembling. This isn't a fearful trembling as though we are afraid of God, but a reverence born of awe at the greatness of his authority and the peace that comes from living in harmony with it. And here is the heart of the Psalm's invitation. Listen to these words very carefully and write them down. Blessed are all who take refuge in who? In him. This is not a message of despair, but one of hope. The kings of the earth may rage, but those who find their refuge in God are blessed. They are secure, for the Lord is their refuge, their protector, their sovereign king. In the end, the invitation of Psalm 2 is an invitation to peace. It's an invitation to recognize that God's sovereignty is not a threat to our freedom, but the means by which we are truly free. The world may resist, but those who trust in his rule will find rest for their souls. And like Jane learned the hard way, it is only when we surrender to God's rightful authority that we find the peace and stability we so desperately seek. In a world full of turmoil, let us take refuge in the one who is seated on the throne, knowing that his reign is eternal and his wisdom unsearchable.